Maybe we can hear the screeching now, and it's going to get a lot louder. So the serpentine belt is this guy right there, and so this is spinning all the time, but there is this clutch on your AC compressor that will engage when you turn on your AC. And what I was finding was that when we did that, this thing would start squealing like a pig. It wasn't doing it right there, but this is an intermittent problem that has been a pain in the butt. So what we're going to be doing is fixing this. And the way we're going to start is by first taking out the power steering pump and reservoir. And this is pretty straightforward. What you have here is a 10 mil bolt. This is a wing nut that you use to adjust the tension on your power steering belt. So you'll undo the ring nut. You also take off this 12 mil bolt, and I recommend using a wrench to do that. And once you loosen that, this assembly will slip out. After you take off this bolt, you loosen the tension there and you take off that bolt, this whole thing comes out, and I can show you a picture of it afterwards. And then there's also another 12 millimeter bolt. Trying to point to it here, but the engine's kind of hot. So, but there is a 12 mil bolt. You can barely see it. So this is the 12 mil bolt that I was trying to point to earlier. So we can see it now once we've kind of lifted up the power steering reservoir out the way. The reason you want to take that bolt off, as well as the bolt that was holding the top part of the power steering pump on, is because the way it works is as you adjust down the wing nut that was here, you are pulling this thing up, and that creates tension on this belt. And so you need to undo these two bolts here to get that off. And these are the parts you'll have afterwards. And it is hard to do this with one hand, but this thing here runs through your power steering pump and into this bracket that's mounted on the engine block. And this is the wing nut that you actually use to adjust the tension for your power steering pump with. So we'll keep taking this apart and get down and we'll get better access to the wing nut that's really close to the alternator, so that we can actually begin to retension this thing. And so after we get out the power steering pump and reservoir, you just set it to the side like this. We can see we now have much better access to a lot of the stuff we're going to be working on. So this is the alternator, and there is a 14 mil bolt right here that you're going to want to loosen, as well as a 12 millimeter bolt right the side in the middle there, underneath that. So it's right at the top of this compressor. And let me see if I can get good light on it. So the 12 millimeter bolt right there is what you're going to be loosening. You don't take it all the way off, you just need to loosen it. And the purpose of loosening it, as well as the 14 mil bolt up top, is to allow your alternator to move on the arc that it's on a little bit, and that way will let you push down the alternator, which will create enough slack in your serpentine belt so you can slip the belt off and then put on a new belt. And the wing nut that we can see right there is what you're going to be adjusting in order to tension your alternator. Once you get the 12 mil bolt on the alternator bracket right here loosened, and make note, you don't need to loosen this 12 mil bolt that I'm pointing to, you just need to loosen the 12 mil bolt that I have the ratchet on right now. So once you get that loose and you have the 14 mil bolt right here loose, you should now have some play in your alternator. And after you adjust your wing nut that we can see right there with my finger, once you loosen that up a bit, just counterclockwise, your belt should have no tension in it, and you'll be able to slip it off and slip on a new belt. And so I already have the new belt slipped on. Now what we're going to do is actually torque down the wing nuts to swing the alternator up like this, which is going to put tension into our system, so your belt will be tight and it won't slip off or make the squeal that was our original problem. So once you get the new belt on and you've tensioned it with the wing nut, I recommend turning on the car and letting the AC compressor be engaged. So make sure you've turned on the AC within the car, and you should feel cold air coming out. If you don't, there's another problem besides the belt. And just let the car run like this for a few minutes, just so you can make sure that the new belt is fully seated in place. And make note how you can leave the power steering pump reservoir up like this while you're letting the serpentine belt sit in. And so once this thing's fully sat back down and you're happy with it, you can move forward and tighten the 14mm bolt right there, as well as the 12mm bolt on the underside of the alternator. And also make a note here how there's no chirping, which is a good sign, which means the belt does have sufficient tension. And so if you did hear chirping, then at this point is when you would want to come back in and add some more tension into your belt. But right now I think everything's good, and it's nice and cold in here, which is also good. So we can turn this off, and I think it's job done. It's basically just tighten back all the bolts and put back in the power steering pump, reservoir, and belt. And so once you've put back in the power steering pump, it is tricky to get everything right, but this is how it should look once you get there. So you do have this 10mm bolt right here, a wing nut right here. So there are 2 bolts and then nuts that go on the side of it, 2 pairs. So you've got 1 pair right here at the top of the power steering pump, and then there is the second pair, and you can see the bolt right there. And so you thread the bolt through this side for the bottom one, and then you have the nut on the other side, and you've torqued that down after you've put tension into your power steering belt. And same goes for this bolt right here. So right now you can see that the power steering pump has yet to be tensioned. So what will happen, if you look at the belt, as I torque down the wing nut right here, is that it's going to start pulling up on it. And you can see the belt now getting more and more tension as I turn the wing nut, because it's pulling the power steering pump upwards like this. So you just keep torquing down on it until you get a nice amount of tension in it. And in terms of how much tension you need to put in, usually I'll do kind of like finger tight on this wing nut, check the tension right here, and then turn the car over, check if you hear any squealing in this belt. If you do, that means there's not enough tension, you need to add some more. The other rule of thumb you see guys do is they do that 90-degree rule, where they try to rotate the belt, and if it can twist past 90, then you don't have enough tension in it. But once you've gotten to this point, after you've got the tension set correctly, turn the engine over, let the power steering pump belt sit in, and you're happy with it. Now you can torque down the 12mm bolt right here on this, the 12mm bolt, nut right here, as well as the other 12mm bolt nut on right there. And so once you do that, you will have successfully finished installing both the power steering belt as well as the serpentine belt right below. And so nice work.